Good? Okay. All right. So, open up to the laws of Shabbat, page 142. I know it's funny.
Do you
have another laws of Shabbat for
Oh.
We're doing festivals. I just want to reiterate something we spoke about. Just a little review before we go further. Page 142 in the laws of Shabbat is the list of the 39 melachot. Melacha is singular.
Melachot is plural.
Melachot is plural.
Okay.
And here they are. Zoreah, Choresh. Want to read them, Yosef?
זורע, חורס, קוצר, מהמר, דש, זורע, בורר, טוחן, מרקד, לש, אופה, גוזז צמר, מלבן, מנפץ, צובע, טובה, מעסק, עושה שתי בתי נירין, אורג שני הוטין, פוצע שני חוטין, קושר, מתיר, תופר שתי תפירות, קורע על מנת לתפור שתי תפירות, צד צבי, שוחט, מפשיט, מולח, מעבד, מסרטט, מחתך, חוטב שתי אותיות, מוכח על מנת לכתוב שתי אותיות. בונה, סותר, מכבה, מעביר, מכה בפטיש, מוציא מרשות לרשות.
Ephemerod. You ever read this list before?
Yes.
You read it very nicely.
I read it just before, just once, and this is the second.
Second time. Beautiful. Wow. Okay. So these are the 39 activities called Avot Melacha. And we learned that there's also Toladot. Toladah is a derivative. Av is the father. Toladah is a child. These are the 39 categories, and then there's derivatives of each one. Any of these 39 melachot on Shabbat are forbidden. So far, so good. Those were the laws. Those were the 39 categories of work. Now, I'd like to keep that book open. Open up the laws of the festivals to page 61. It's those thinner volumes. We learned this, but it's just good to review to make clear that out of the 39, there are 7 melachot that are permitted on Yom Tov. And we learned that once they're already permitted for food, they're permitted for anything necessary for the day of Yom Tov. The classic 7 are ones which are clearly for food preparation. Obviously, if we look back at the list on page 142, all the stuff that has to do with wool and shearing the wool from 12, 13, laundering the wool, that's nothing to do with food, right? Menapetz, combing the wool, 12, 13, 14. I'm back in the one about Shabbat, right? Tzoveya, dyeing, spinning, making threads, Neisech, working, but that's on the loom, the warp and the woof. Oseh shnei batei nirin, oreg shnei chutim, actually weaving, potzeh shnei chutim, separate 2 threads, kosher matir, tofer shtei tefillot, koreh mana shtei tefillot. From 12 through 24, this has nothing to do with food. This is preparing textiles. And so that's the same. You're not allowed to do those on Shabbat, and you're not allowed to do those on Yom Tov. It's the first 11 which you might think, and afterwards we'll see some of the others as well. Some of the others are allowed, but those 12 are the same, prohibited. Let's take a look at now the Yom Tov Melachot. Which ones are allowed on Yom Tov? Lash. Number 1 is kneading, lash. What number is that?
10.
Number 10. 10 and 11. It's only the last 2, if you notice. Yes. Good morning, Shmuel. Good morning. I apologize. misscheduled with you. We're gonna have to do it tomorrow at 12:15.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry to this. I'm teaching a class, so we can't support it. But anyways, look at number 11 and 12, 10 and 11. 10 and 11. The last two, when it comes to food preparation, those are clearly allowed. Because that's what you need and you bake. You need and you bake, that's cooking. Got that? But 1 through 10, 1 through 9, that's already preparing for preparing. When you're making food, you don't have to sow the seeds in the earth. You don't have to harvest and thresh it and winnow it, grind it. That's all things that should be done beforehand. It's not directly preparing food. So 1 through 9 are prohibited, and 12 through 24 are prohibited. It's only 10 and 11. You see that? Only 10 and 11. Kneading and cooking, or baking, which is allowed. So far, so good? So we covered 1 through 9 prohibited. 10 and 11 allowed. 12 through 24 not allowed. Let's continue. If you look back to the laws of Shabbat, we're comparing between the laws of Shabbat and the laws of Yom Tov. So you have, Shmuel, you have the volume right next to you, not next to you, next, closer? That one. Yeah, that's the laws of Shabbat, right? So look on page 143. We're just looking at the list. There is a list of melachot which are forbidden by the Torah on Shabbat. And we're comparing those to the list of things which are forbidden on Yom Tov. Of course, this coming week we have a very special occurrence where we have one after the other. We have Yom Tov on Friday and then Shabbat. They have a little bit different rules. So far, they're pretty similar, right? It's just two things different, 10 and 11. Lash and Ofeh, you're allowed to knead and cook. Everything else, forbidden the same. Now let's go on. We said we're up to 25. Now the list on page 143, number 25 is to trap an animal. That's not allowed on Shabbat, and it's not allowed on Yom Tov either. But what you are allowed to do is, in order to eat, you're allowed to shochet. You're allowed to do the slaughtering. In the days before there was a refrigerator, you had to have the meat fresh. So you wanted to have meat on Yom Tov, so you had to slaughter it on that day. Number 27. Mafshit. You have to take the meat off of the skin. That's part of getting the food ready. So 26 and 27 are allowed on Yom Tov. And then we take a break. 28 is not allowed. You're not allowed to tan. That's no need for Yom Tov. What are you going to make a purse? What are you going to make shoes out of the leather? That's not for today. The satet marking, you're not going to write on the parchment, so you don't need to mark it. Smoothing it, not allowed. Cutting it is not allowed. Writing two letters is not allowed. 33, mochek, to erase in order to write. Onen sater, building, demolishing, you're not allowed to do that. It's nothing to do with food. We get to number 36 and 37. Obviously, you need to light and extinguish a fire to cook. So those are allowed, 36 and 37. Lighting a fire and extinguish a flame. I know it's a little bit out of order here in his list. But the last one that's permitted is the number 39. Tzimmer should carrying from one domain to another. You have to carry to get your food from inside the house to their neighbor's house, whatever it is. And the one that's not allowed, of course, is Makeh Patish, applying the finishing touch, which is a form of building, essentially. Makeh Patish, that's not allowed. So the 7 which are allowed, as you can see, out of the 39, it's only 7 that are allowed. And of course, even though you're allowed to transfer fire, we don't actually light it or extinguish it. That was rabbinically prohibited. We saw that this week.
Question, Rob.
Yeah.
Well, it says in the laws of the festival, Hotzara, and here it's mostly Mishur, Lishur.
It's two ways of saying the same thing.
But it's the same thing.
Same thing. Yeah.
Sorry, could you go through which numbers again? It's allowed.
So let's start from the list of Shabbat. Okay. Well, you see the list on page. If you open the laws of the festivals at the same time, we're having two books open at once. Look at the laws of the festivals, page 61. There you have a list of the 7 melachot which are permitted on Yom Tov when done as part of food preparation. So those are the 7 that we listed. And then there's some which are a little bit in the middle. You see, in the third paragraph, in the middle of the page, it says there are food-related melachot that are forbidden outright on Yom Tov. I already explained to you that kotzer, number 1, number 2, threshing, dash, which includes meferek and suchet, winnowing, trapping. All these are preparatory melachot, which are forbidden on Yom Tov. Okay, so those are absolutely forbidden, even though they are related to food. They're just they should have been done earlier. You don't have to harvest on the Yom Tov or to trap the animal. That should be done earlier. What is sort of halfway is the middle paragraph. You can see there's another list, a list of 3 things, tochen, borer, and me'amer, which are permitted only if they're done at home for cooking in a way which is different than the way they're usually done, which is in a commercial, industrial way. Grinding, separating, and gathering. And, so this is, we covered all the different melachot compared to the ones for Shabbat. All right, you can compare those lists, make sure you get it straight, between the 39 melachot and the 7, which are permitted, plus 3 a little bit are permitted. The rest, 29 melachot, totally prohibited on Yom Tov, just like they're prohibited on Shabbat. Clear? That's good review. It's good to review. Okay. Shmuel, where are you coming in from? Where do you live?
By Mach.
So you take a bus, you take a train?
Take 2 buses.
Oh, 2 buses.
And the whole city is just one big traffic jam this morning.
Is that right?
I'm sorry, it's
That's okay.
all Rabbi and Gishem Torim.
I know it well. It's traffic. No fun. Okay, so for now, that was just a little bit of review of the melachot that we don't do on the Shavuot, on the festival, like all of the festivals. You're not allowed to do melacha, except if it's for melechet ochel nefesh, or what you need to eat. We're going to go back and continue to talk about the different themes of the holiday of Shavuot. It's really unthinkable when you think about it, that the Torah never once says that Shavuot is the time of Matan Torah. But when you read the text, it's clear that it had to be at that time. The Torah only calls it Chag HaShavuot, Chag HaBikurim, and Chag HaKatzir. Never calls it Zman Matan Torah, but this just strengthens our resolve against so many, throughout the ages there have been so many attackers of traditional Judaism. But the concept that we have an oral Torah, which was given together in parallel, maybe even before the written Torah, is so clear to Judaism. And this is, I think, one of the biggest proofs. How can the Torah not mention this is the time of the great event? It's even a mitzvah in the Torah, according to some people who count to 613. It says in the Torah clearly, you should never forget the day that you stood at Sinai. Such a tremendous revelation. Thunder, lightning, 10 Commandments. That's the highlight of the whole movie, right? So how could the Torah not say that this is what we celebrate on Shavuot. It works out. It works exactly. It says in the Torah, they came to Sinai, beginning of the third month. This is the third month. Today is the first day of the third month. So how could the Torah not? And then they had to prepare for a couple of days. You work it out. It works out to be exactly 6th of Sivan. It could be the 5th, it could be the 7th. And then the Torah says you count from Pesach 49, right? 7 weeks, 49 days, and on the 50th you make it a holiday. And it works out to be exactly the 6th of Sivan. And yet the Torah never says that Shavuot is the holiday of Matan Torah. Makes no sense. We have to understand that not everything is written in the Torah. So much of our tradition is missing from the written Torah. Written Torah misses out so much material. It is assumed, that is discussed in our history from time immemorial. Even laws, let alone what we're discussing now, which is themes of the festival. You know what else it doesn't say anywhere in the Torah? It doesn't say that Rosh Hashanah is Rosh Hashanah. Just said they make a festival on the 1st of Tishrei, 1st of the 7th month. Doesn't say why. Doesn't say it has anything to do with Teshuvah. But of course, as a lead up towards Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, it must be clear that this is part of the process of getting atonement. So it's very, very important to understand Judaism is that we have an oral Torah. The oral Torah teaches us that Shavuot, of course, celebrates much more than just the day of the harvest. But it says, and the Torah is also true, of course, we have the written Torah together with the oral Torah. One is not at the expense of the other, it's not one over the other. There were at different periods of history all sorts of sects and groups who had trouble with the oral Torah, but they eventually went the way of history. Karaites, you might have heard of. Earlier than that, we had the Essenes and the Sadducees and the Baitusees in the Second Temple period. And
it's really interesting. The Sadducees were the priests, the Kohen.
Sure.
How do they abandon the old Torah?
It's shocking, huh? Yeah. The Second Temple period was quite a period of upheaval. And there was, listen, there's always, political reasons, personal reasons, there's money involved, there was, but these groups, it's hard. People want to have a text. Very hard for us to get a wrap around this concept that so much of our Torah was given over by, for lack of a better word, tradition. Tradition is something which is not just folklore, which is the way sometimes the word is used. Actually means we have a tradition, means we have a living Torah passed down to us orally, an oral tradition which was lived and had details and had so much to tell us. There's hints to it everywhere. There's logic that it has to be, otherwise the written Torah is almost unintelligible. Even the Torah itself. The Torah itself, let me share with you a little bit of the current events. We don't know how to read the Torah itself, the written Torah. How are you going to know how to read it if you don't have the oral traditions telling you? It doesn't say anywhere in the Tanakh which books are part of the Tanakh. How do you know that these books are in and these books are out? It doesn't say it. There's no table of contents in the Bible. It just starts from Bereshit, goes to the end of Malachi. So we have an oral tradition. There's an oral tradition that these books are holy, these are not. Other ones didn't make it in. Very interesting. That's the structure. What about
Vowels?
the vowels? What about how to separate the verses? There's no punctuation in a Sefer Torah. In the ancient scrolls, there's no punctuation.
It's continuous.
It's continuous. there's some words where you could read them in different ways. It would have a different meaning. It says in one place that the woman gives birth. She has to be impure, ritually impure, for 2 weeks. That's the way we read it. That's what our tradition tells us, the way it should be read. If you look inside the text itself, it could be read Shiv'im. The same word Shivu'ayim, it has no vowels that show you that it's Shivu'ayim. It could be Tamash Shiv'im. Shiv'im means 70. Could be she's declared impure for 70 days. How do we know to read 2 weeks and not 70? Oral tradition. The oral tradition. Oral tradition was very powerful. I think we don't realize how powerful it was in the ancient world. People didn't know how to read and write, most people, and material was scarce, books were scarce. And the oral way of teaching stories, Binyamin, you can tell us how tradition in some societies are passed on by stories. You learn the stories from the elders, and that's what you memorize. You memorize. In the ancient cultures, there was so much going on when it comes to oral tradition. Now, for us, it's very difficult because we're so used to having books. Can't even imagine what it's like. But just for something that we can relate to, you've heard of Homer, the great poet. He wrote the classics, Iliad and the Odyssey. I don't know if you've ever read them. They're great books, a lot of fun. Yeah, they are. Yeah, I read them in translation, of course, in English. But each one is about 300-page books. For hundreds of years, they were not written down. They were memorized. Orally. People knew those books off by heart. 300 pages each. This is just the way the world used to work. So of course, there was many traditions in our Torah as well that was memorized. Not everything got written down. Now, last week, to bring us up to current events, there was a text of the Torah, of the Tanakh, sold for $38 million. Did you hear about this? It's called the Sassoon Codex. Codex means a book. After there were scrolls. Scrolls is the ancient way of keeping texts. But the problem is, if you need to turn quickly to page 143, it'll take you 10 minutes. And then you need to turn to page 225, you gotta scroll. If you have a book, it's much easier. So anyways, they moved over to books. Anyways, the fascinating thing is that, of course, there is a Torah shebichtav, written Torah. What's Torah shebichtav? Written Torah. Israel, Torah shebichtav. What does that mean? Torah shebichtav. Ktav. Ktov. Right, Torah, of course. Torah. She. Be. Ktav. This is the word ktiva. Right, that's in Hebrew. Ktav, that's the verb to write. Ktav. Sorry. I got so excited. I skipped out the verb. Torah shebechtav, right? What we're saying is that there's also Torah, she, be, al, pe, 2 words. Pe is mouth. Written Torah and oral Torah. So Torah shebichtav, it got written down, but you see, strangely enough, the Torah that gets written down, that's prone to changes. before you have a printing press, which is just 500 years old. Talking about 2,000, 3,000 years old. Everything was copied over by manuscripts, by hand. So of course there's going to be mistakes. Every human, every scribe is human. And so there were differences between the different Torahs, different texts. Even though they did try to write down that we do have a Torah Shbichtav, very important. We have to analyze why some things got written down in these 24 books of the Tanakh. Anyways, the book itself was having so many differences. And we have an oral tradition about how it should be read, how it should be punctuated. This tradition was passed on by singing. There's a tune. And there's a group of scholars in the 7th, 8th, and 9th centuries. If you look at the timeline we have on our board, period 1, period 2, period 3, period 4, period 5, 6, and 7, right? We have foundations, first temple, second temple, sages, Geonim, Rishonim, Achronim. So we're talking about the period of the Geonim, really. The period of the Geonim. 600, 700, 800, 900. The oldest Torah scrolls that we have is from this period. Codexes. Before that, we found scrolls, the greatest find ever, called the Dead Sea Scrolls. You can see them in the Israel Museum. There's a special building for them. They go all the way back 1,000 years earlier. We have some scrolls, not a complete Torah, but we have some scrolls. There's passages, the biggest passages, a text of Yeshayahu. Almost all the chapters of Yeshayahu survived because near the Dead Sea is very dry and the parchment survived. It's really a miracle. But after that, we don't have any books. Before that, we don't have any books. We don't have any parchments. We don't have anything. What we do have is from this period. This is only 1,000 years old. Only 1,000 years old. And in this period of 700, 800, 900, there was a group of scholars. The scholars were called the Masoretes. The Masoretes, what they did, they took all these oral traditions about how to read the text, not about anything else. This is all about the text. There's many oral traditions which add on to the text, like we were describing, how according to the oral tradition, Shavuot clearly must be a holiday of the giving of the Torah. But about how to read the text, like the second example I brought about Shvuayim or Shivim, this is an oral tradition about how to read the text. They devised the system. It's genius. I don't know of anything equivalent in the history of the world, really. It's genius. They devised a system of notes, cantillation marks, and references on every single pasuk in the Torah. They put in all the punctuation of every word. There they wrote, Shavuayim, not Shivim. And we have that from 1,000 years ago. And they put together this text. It became known as the Masoretic text. That's the Torah we use until today. And for 1,000 years we haven't had any variation because of this Masoretic text, because of the way they devised the system to add in all sorts of notes and cantillation marks. And not only did they add notes and cantillation marks, they also added comments, footnotes, you could call them. An ancient form of footnotes on almost every word of the Tanakh. Every word of the Tanakh. For example, they would write, this word appears in this form in 5 places in the entire Tanakh. They knew. They knew out of 929 chapters. They knew their stuff. 5 places in the entire Tanakh without a computer, yeah? 5 places where it has this spelling. And only 5 places with this spelling. And there's another pasuk with a similar spelling, but with one more. It'll say this is missing a yud in this place. And there's 2 other places in Tanakh where this word is spelled missing a yud. So there's two versions. This is called the Masoretic Notes. Masora. And the Masora had two versions, the small version and the long version. The small version just said, this is one out of two spellings of the word. The two places where the word is spelled this way. And the Masora Gedola, the larger version of these notes, they actually told you what the other two psukim are, or what the other 5 psukim are. They actually listed them for you. So you couldn't have any mistakes. Warning. So this is the Masora. Let me show you what it looks like. I have at home a beautiful copy of it. There's a booklet here. There's a few copies. You're going to have to share. Not enough for everybody. Take a look. Please give these out. This one for you. Just look at the cover. Cover, you can see, is the second pasuk of the Torah. Bereshit. It's together. You have to share. You have to share. It's what packet? It's a packet, ladies and gentlemen. Look at the cover. You see the cover? Masorah. At the top you see the a bet in the left-hand column. It's the second pasuk in the Torah. On the right-hand column you have the Targum Onkelos. And on the other sides you have commentaries which you're familiar with, Rashi, Ramban, and so forth. This is a standard edition of the Chumash called Chumash Mikraot Gedolot. What's in between the columns? At the top of the page you see that there's bolded a few letters. It says Het, Reish Pei.
This is a script of Rashi, no?
It's in Rashi script, correct. It's in Rashi script. But what does it say? It says there are 8. Het means 8. Reish Pei stands for Rosh Pasuk. There are 8 psukim in the Tanakh that start with the word V'ha'aretz. Amazing. That's one comment. Bet Desmichei, 2 that are connected to the next word. And then Bet Chet. I'm not even sure what these mean. Other notes, you see these are very small. That's the Masorah Ktana, the small little footnotes. And then on the bottom you see that there's 6 lines which are bolded. You see those 6 lines? Bolded? In the picture, you see what I'm reading, looking at?
Yeah.
Hayta tohu אכלה נבלה הארץ והארץ חניפה והם ינו את הארץ והארץ תענה. These are the list of those 8 psukim where it starts off with the word va'aretz. Va'aretz, hey, resh pasuk. וסימניו, והארץ הייתה תוהו ובוהו, והארץ לא תימכר, והארץ תעזב מהם, והארץ אשר אתם עוברים, הארץ חניפה, והארץ הגבלי בכל הלבנון, והארץ הנשמה תעבד, והארץ תענה. There's the 8 psukim, so we see this is a longer version, extended version of the short Masoretic notes. This is the Masorah. This is an entire subject of scholarship. And it's, it's okay, it's all right. Thank you. All's well. And this Masoretic text, because we've had these notations, let alone, of course, you look at the psukim itself, so you can see the cantillation notes, right? On the word bet, where it says bet va'aretz haytatohu, the first line in the biggest letters, va'aretz haytatohu vavo, you see there's 2 dots above the vavo. There's a dot above the aleph, va'aretz. What's that dot? That dot is called the reviyah. A reviyah is a note. It means you sing it. How did I know how to sing that? Because these are the notes. It's like musical notation.
That's the cantillation?
Cantillation marks, yeah. All this was done by the Masoretes. 7th, 8th, 9th century, 10th century. What an amazing thing. So we have the oral tradition about the written tradition, written down for the first time. What an amazing accomplishment. You can come around this way if you want. What an amazing accomplishment. Because of that, until today, you can walk and get any synagogue in the world and pick up a Torah scroll and I'll have exactly the same text. Very, very minor. There still is a few small traditions that changes, I think 9 places where the Yemenite Sefer Torah differ from the Ashkenazi and Sephardi Sefer Torah. Most of it doesn't change the meaning of the word. But it's an amazing system of notations to preserve the integrity of the text.
And for the entire Tanakh?
Entire Tanakh. What was sold last week for $38.4 million was there's like 6 master codexes. The oldest one probably is this one. It's called Ketav Yad Sassoon. Once upon a time was owned. It's in private hands. Now it was bought by a philanthropist. It's going to be put in the museum in Tel Aviv, the Anu Museum. In Tel Aviv, yeah. It's okay. Tel Aviv is a wonderful city. Lots of Jews there, and it's an amazing thing for them to have this ancient Torah there as well.
It's like
the good things.
It's like the Aleppo Codex, things like that.
Precisely, that's its competition for being the oldest. We're not quite sure exactly which one is oldest.
And this one
Either the Sassoon Codex.
And they found it recent, or was also in the
I
Dead
didn't
Scrolls?
find it. No. It was known. It was just privately owned, and it was in Geneva for a while, and now it was sold. It was sold on the auction in New York, in Sotheby's. The 3rd most expensive item ever bought.
Which period is this from?
Of the 10th century, about 1,000 years ago.
10th century.
10th century, yeah.
Are there any like notable scholars, like names, like when is Rashi? Is she from this period or?
No, Rashi's about 100 years later. He mentions the Masorah. He mentions the Masoretic notes here and there. But they deal mainly with the text itself, and that was Rashi deals with interpreting the text. But the text itself, he used the Masoretic text.
Was he from so he's a Rishonim or was he still a Gaonim?
Who's he?
Rashi.
Rashi was a Rishon. Rashi was a Rishon. This was at the end of the period of the Gaonim, the Masoretic text. So we have very few ancient these codexes. Now the problem is, that the Aleppo Codex, which for many years was in Haleb, Syria, Aleppo, that's how it got its name. And then before that it was in Egypt. It's probably the best. The problem is 1/3 of it is missing. A long story. Books have been written, movies have been made about who stole 1/3 of the most ancient and most authoritative copy of the Tanakh. To this day, we don't know. Maybe we'll find out. Maybe in our lifetime, it'll turn up somewhere. For a long time, people thought it was burnt up. In 1948, Syrians torched the synagogue where it was housed. It turns out it was saved and smuggled into Israel. It's now in the Israel Museum, housed right next to the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Shrine of the Book it's called. You know, in the Israel Museum, this beautiful building that's like a teardrop.
2 weeks ago with Ulpan.
Oh, amazing. You saw it?
Yeah, we saw the Aleppo. That's why I was thinking about
Yeah, Aleppo Codex,
I
right.
saw like
It's his brother. The Aleppo Codex's brother. Same time period. The Masorete who was in charge of writing in all these notes these kind of notes to preserve the text, he was not as good as the Akkadiav Sassoon. Now, the Sassoon manuscript was not as good as the Aleppo Codex. Aleppo Codex is maybe, because you see, one scribe would write the Chumash itself, another scribe would write the Masorah notes, and the Aleppo Codex is unique in that there's only 3 places in the entire Tanakh where the text does not match the Masoretic notes. So the text itself is closest to the Masoretic notes, so it's called the most authentic Masoretic text. Taviat Sassoon, there's maybe 20 or 30 differences. Other manuscripts have more mistakes. They were not as precise. There's the Leningrad. The only other complete text of the Tanakh from that time period, it's about 100 years later. It was in the library in Leningrad till today. But we have access to it, and many Tanakhs today printed based on the Leningrad manuscripts. And there's some which are based on the Aleppo Codex, perhaps even more precise. Anyways, that's the Masoretic text. Current events. That's the written Torah. The written Torah is so important. We preserve every letter and every spelling and every nuance. But it's all based on what happened up until the 9th and 10th century. It was all oral. We needed oral tradition to make sure we know how to read it, to make sure we know what goes in. There's so much oral tradition which happened even before there was scrolls, the Dead Sea Scrolls. Plus we have this oral tradition as the foundation of Judaism. So on Shavuot we celebrate the day of the receiving of the Torah on Mount Sinai. 2 Torahs. The written Torah and the oral Torah. Did we receive the written Torah on the 6th of Sivan? That's clear in the text. That when we describe that God gave the Torah, works out 50 days after we left Egypt, it's clear we received no text. So afterwards, Moshe goes up to the heavens for 40 days and 40 nights. Comes back with the 10 tablets. But there was no text given on the 6th of Sivan. That was oral. God spoke the 10 commandments, as they're called. So really you could say Shavuot is a celebration of the oral Torah. When was the text given?
40 days.
40 days later we got the tablets, but did we actually receive the tablets? What happened to them?
Well, the first tablets were.
On the way, they had an accident.
Yes.
Moshe broke the first tablets. We never got them.
How? This story is not so clear from my side.
Okay.
From my knowledge.
Well, yeah, it's in there. It's in the Torah. The Torah describes it in the book of Shemot. Chapter 19 discusses the giving of the 10 commandments, the revelation of Sinai. It says very clearly that God spoke to us. Jewish people gathered, God spoke to us. It doesn't say he gave us anything, any text. And the day after, it says, Moshe, come on up. I'll give you the tablets. 40 days, 40 nights, comes down. He sees, what are the people doing? What are the people doing after 40 days? What are they doing at the bottom of the Mount Sinai? They're doing the golden calf. So he breaks the tablet. Chapter 24, chapter 22. And Moshe is very angry. And he has to clean up the mess. Here it's a little bit unclear, but our basic tradition, let me give you a timeline. Wait, where's our list of the months of the year? You know them in your head?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna test you on the months of the year. I'll be right back with your test. If you have it now, pull it out. Pull out your nuts, and I'll be right back with your test. You ready? Yep.
What else?
Oh,
You only know the Nikon. Nissan,
Exactly.
Hey, Shevet of Tavat, Tevet Shevat. Shevet, Sevet Tavat.
David Shvada.
Tevet Shevat. Tevet Shevat. Tevet Shevat. Tevet Shevat. That's the one. You know this? No, that's everybody knows. This one, Tevet Shevat. No, joke. But I always forget this one. The other one is, you know, because you know,
I
like,
start in the middle. I always start in the middle. This one.
you know, before dishes, Elio,
Mm.
and after Tammuz, after that, no. Because there's, you know, Tammuz and after the fasting, and like, Shabbat, together. Elul is month of Slichot, okay?
Yeah.
Romans, then you have Tisha.
Oh, you're looking for me?
I'll tell you later.
Yeah.
I thought there was no list. That's why. I thought there was no list.
Oh, okay.
You find it?
Okay. You ready?
There's two units down, right?
Yeah, this doesn't have the answers. It has some of the answers. Ah, I changed it a little.
Okay.
I improved it.
Wow.
You can see there's a column.
It's the answers, not answers.
No, the dates are not in there.
Oh, we have to know the dates. I thought
The dates, you have to know the dates.
I thought the other version. Like
The months, Nisan,
Zivan,
Tammuz, Elul, Tishrei, Shvat, Kislev, Tevet, Shvat. Who has two? Somebody got two? I thought I printed 10. So Micha, do me a favor, take this to Listman's office and make a copy.
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
how much? Only one?
Yeah. Okay. So you can see in the new chart, I separated off the biblical from the rabbinic and from the commemorations. And the fast days are in a different column. How many fast days are there? How many fast days are there? 4. You see the fast days in the last column?
Okay.
Yisrael. See the 4 fast days? How do you say fast in Cantonese? Gamze. There's 2 more fasts which are not in the column though. What are the 2 fast days which are not in that column? That's in there. 17th of Tammuz is in there, 9th of Av is in there. What's missing?
Yom Kippur.
Yom Kippur. Very good. Yom Kippur. Well, it's not in the column because it's the only one that's biblical.
Because
We wanted to make sure that you realize that it's a biblical
they
festival.
also
Oh,
It's
okay.
not the
Isn't
same.
the rabbinic? Isn't the rabbinic?
So,
Oh, you know, it's the
these
fast
are
days.
these are rabbinical? The fast days?
All those are rabbinic, exactly. All those are rabbinic. Gives you the message at the same time. There's one more fast day which is not in that column.
That's the
Other.
That's right, the fast of Esther. Why is the fast of Esther not in the same column? It's also rabbinic. Why? Why shouldn't it be in that? Thank you, sir.
Come on.
Thank you, sir. Here you go. This is the new chart I gave you. The fast of Esther is really not about the destruction. The 4 festivals were decreed to commemorate the destruction of the temple.
So this is your column for the destruction.
Correct. The fast is for the destruction would be more precise, yeah. That's right. All those 4 fast days are about the destruction. Whereas the fast of Esther is really part of the commemoration of the Purim story. Of course, Yom Kippur, it's a biblical fast. To assist in our teshuvah. Okay? Also, you notice in Elul, I changed it up a little bit. I wrote, what do we have in Elul? There's no holidays really in Elul. We have commemorations. These are customs which take you into prepare you for the high holidays. All right? So now I'll give you a moment. Everybody write down the dates of the festivals. You see there's an empty column. The second, third column is empty. So next to Pesach, give me the dates.
Next to Omer also the date.
Next to Omer also the dates. Next to Yom Ha'atzmaut also the date. Give me the date of the Omer too, please. And Pesach starts on the 15th. When does it end?
7 days. 21.
Here too, the range.
Yeah, Pesach.
One step. Only one step.
Yes, it's right here.
I'm not so sure it was.
You're supposed to write it here in the column.
You should write
the
right,
dates.
right.
Yeah, I wrote it here, but
so
I'm
then
not
transfer
sure
over.
that's this.
Oh, well, now we're going over it to make sure. So that's, you finished, Michal? Not yet. You're still working on it. Nisan Iyar Sivan.
Sixteen. 16.
I forgot to do
Because the second day we count on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm finished off one.
You finished?
Yeah.
Excellent. Show me. Give me the range here.
The range?
For Pesach, yeah. 15 until when?
Oh, okay. Sorry.
That's incorrect.
It's not 16 November?
No, the third one.
Oh, yes, I forgot. This one is good, this one's?
Yeah.
Okay. But I remember, there was 2 8.
Excellent.
This one I forgot. It's another
You have to
number.
give me the range, and that's wrong.
Yes, 22.
That's also a range.
Okay.
That's good. Very good. Very good. Okay.
Yeah, you have it.
Yom Kippur. 10.
All right. Let's take it up. Shmuel, what'd you get for the date of Pesach?
15th to 21st?
Good. And the Omer?
16th?
16th. Very good. Yom HaTzmaut is on?
5-3.
Hey, yeah, the 5th of the year, usually not.
6 p.m.
Usually they move it. And we discussed it, avoid the
Yes,
violation of Shabbat.
yeah.
Pesach Sheni, 14th, right? That's one way, the 18th. Yom Yerushalayim, 28th of the year. We just had it on Friday. Baruch Hashem. Shavuot, according to our calendar, it's the 6th. It's set. It used to be variable, but now it's
Those holidays have Easter Chag, נכון? Pesach and Shavuot and so.
That's right. All of the festivals, the biblical festivals have Easter Chag.
The high holidays?
Also,
Yeah, apart from Kippur, I believe.
not Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, also not. Yeah, the three major
Three.
festivals. Yeah.
Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot.
What's the date for Sukkot?
15
15
to
to
21.
15 to 21, just like Pesach is 15 to 21 of Nisan. It's a half a year later. You notice that?
Yeah.
And then we have Shmini Atzeret on day 22. Tishrei, Cheshvan, there's no holidays. Hanukkah goes from the 25th until the 3rd of Tevet. The 10th of Tevet is on which day?
And
The 10th of Tevet, very good. That's sharp.
What's the hard one?
That was a hard one. And Tu B'Shvat is on the
15.
15th, that's what the words mean, yeah. And then the fast of Esther is always on the 13th.
13th.
Always only the 13th. And
I removed the 40.
good. Purim could be the 14th, could be the 15th, depending whether you're in a walled city or not. Okay? So now, let's go back to our story. Binyamin was not clear about the story, but it always bears reviewing. When did we leave Egypt?
Nisan.
Nisan, 15th. 15th of Nisan. And then we start 16th. We're supposed to count
Omer.
the Omer. 49 days. Takes us to day 15.
Sivan. Shavuot.
50 days takes us to the 6th of Sivan. 6th of Sivan is when the Torah says we got the Torah. came to Mount Sinai and on the beginning of the third month, right? 1, 2, 3. Nisan, Iyar, Sivan. Beginning of the third month is Sivan. That's our month. That's today. Today we came to Mount Sinai. We're already in the atmosphere, we're getting ready for Shavuot. Because it's Rosh Chodesh Sivan, number 1 of Sivan. We came to underneath the mountain, and we had a few days of preparation time. Moshe goes up. Look at chapter 19 of the book of Shemot, you'll see it there. Moshe comes back down, there's messages. The mission statement to the Jewish people is a beautiful, beautiful passage. And then, after a few days of preparation, God comes down. Our tradition tells us it's on the 6th. That's the way we celebrate it now. Of course, it's variable. It depends on whether this month had 1 day or 2 days of Rosh Chodesh. Sivan, 1 day or 2 days of Rosh Chodesh. It can change the date. That's why there's no date in the Torah for the giving of the Torah. Our tradition nowadays, we celebrate that it's always on the 6th. Okay? Binyamin, what happened after the 6th of Sivan? What, 6th of Sivan, we got the Torah, right?
Yeah.
So pay attention over here, guys. What's the next month? Nisan, Iyar, Sivan, Tammuz, Tishrei. When are we going to get the 2 tablets already? When are we going to get the 10 tablets? We don't get it. It's just oral. 10 commandments, oral, on the 6th of Sivan. Well, if you look in the Torah, it says after that, great revelation, God said to Moshe, come up to me 40 days and 40 nights. According to our tradition, 7th of Sivan, he went up the day after the 6th. Came down on the 17th of Tammuz, right? 1 month and 30 days plus 10, 40 days. So what happened on the 17th of Tammuz? We were supposed to get them. But, of course, the tablets get broken because they're worshiping the golden calf. That's until today. We have a fast day. On what day?
17th of
17th of Tammuz. It also had things to do with the destruction, but it also takes us all the way back to the biblical times. According to our tradition, that's the date where we commemorate the golden calf, the sin of the golden calf, and the breaking of the tablets. Yes.
The question, because 40 nights on the mountain,
It's a miracle.
and he received the Torah on the 6th of Sivan, or the cloud received the Torah on the 6th of Sivan?
No, it says in the Torah that everybody heard. He brought the people out to the foot of the mountain, and everybody heard God.
Because there's like 2 situations, right? One, chapter 19, and what about chapter 24, when they see the...
Chapter 24, that's a
They
party. It's a
Yes.
party. The party, there's a debate whether that party happened before the revelation at Sinai, before chapter 19, or after.
But
The simple reading of the Torah. It happened afterwards. There was a party afterwards.
Yes.
And then the
So
elders, like whenever you finish
But-
learning Torah, you have a party.
But let me say, so they went, that's also confusing to me. So they went the first time to the mountain, and then they heard the voice and they saw the sound.
6 of Sivan, yeah.
But later, chapter 30 something, then he come down with the God.
That's right.
And what's that? It's also, what is the...
Well, let's see. Let's do the calculation, right? And let's do the calculation. So we got 40 days after the 50 days.
Yes.
40 days comes. They should have received the first tablets. The tablets on the 17th of Sivan. Tammuz. 17th of Tammuz, right? 40 days. You can draw it on your chart if you like. You want to remember it. The 17th of Tammuz.
Oh, but one question. So you can say like, Moshe, he brought the people to the mountain, and then Hashem say, wait a minute, you have one more job for you, come upstairs. Was that what happened?
First it says that everybody heard the Ten
Yes.
Commandments.
So, yeah, everyone heard, later he said,
Afterwards,
he went
he says, come on up, I'm going to give you tablets. Before that, he gave them the content, the oral speech, whatever that means. It's hard to describe revelation of God. We speak in language God can also speak in language, but he doesn't have to. He could be somehow automatically downloaded into our brains and into our hearts. The content of the Ten Commandments.
Kita 17 tahun.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Yeah, you
it
can
does
write-
say
you
that
can write
afterwards it tells
You
Moshe
can
to
write
come up, 4 days, 40 nights, come down, according to the calculation, where it's said to be 70 of Tammuz. It says that he broke the tablets, and then he had to. Here it's not as explicit in the text, but our tradition tells us that there's actually 3 times that Moshe went up for 40 days and 40
Three
nights.
times?
3 times. Right after the tablets are broken, Moshe says, let me go up to pray for you. Because maybe God is going to destroy the Jewish people. He was so angry. So he has to go up and just to pray for forgiveness. This middle 40 days was when he was praying for forgiveness. And only at the end of the 40 days does God actually tell him, okay, I have forgiven the Jewish people, but now the sign that I'm going to forgive the Jewish people is that I'm going to give them the tablets. Once again, we'll try a second time.
So that's the first
iPad 1.0 and iPad 2.0, right?
Wow.
The tablets.
Yeah, tablets.
iPad is a tablet, right?
Yes, yes.
The tablet second version, according to our tradition, if you figure it out, 40 days. Maybe he had to take a few days here to clean up till the 20th. But you take 10 days left of Tammuz and 30 days of Av, that's 40 days. Until the people were forgiven, and then God says to them, come on up with this another set of tablets. A few differences between them, but he was up there for another 40 days and 40 nights. He finally comes down on the tablets. On which day? How does that work out? 30 days of Elul, 10 days of Tishrei. What's the 10th of Tishrei?
Yom Kippur.
Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is known as the day of forgiveness. Why?
Kapara.
Why?
Because Hashem will forgive them.
How do you know? How do you know that Hashem forgave them?
This day
Siccome
of
le to sa Torah, to
Because he gave us
the Torah.
the tablets, the second tablets. You get the tablets here. These are the ones which are not broken. The day of the giving of the tablets. Even though it's 120 days after Mount Sinai, the oral revelation, this is the first written testament that the Torah describes as being received on Yom Kippur. So of course for all days, for all times, Yom Kippur is known as the day of atonement, day of forgiveness. And there's no greater sign of the forgiveness than finally getting those tablets. They were put in their own Kodesh, put inside the Mishkan, inside the Holy of Holies. So still didn't answer our question though. When did we receive Torah? This is not yet the Torah scroll. I don't know if you can see my artwork here. But where's the Torah? Where's the parchment with the 5 books of Moses? Not yet.
But
The story hasn't happened yet. I mean,
Man, much of the story is still ahead of us. Exactly. This is the first year where they come out of Egypt. Then what happens after that? Do they go to Israel right away?
They stay for 40 years.
Spies, 40 years in the desert. At the end of the Torah, it says that Moshe writes the Torah and gives it to the Jewish people. So we have another 40 years, not 40 days. Right? 40 years. I think number 40 is a symbolic number. It symbolizes transition. You could say that in Chinese, transition. Moving from one state to another state. It's like a baby is born in 40 days,
Conceived in 40
40
days.
weeks
40 weeks.
of 40 weeks of gestation, yeah. Transition, yeah. 40 years later, we receive the full Torah.
Gentile.
Yeah.
Kotoke.
Benjamin, you got that now? Of course, it's complicated. When did we receive? When did we leave Egypt, Benjamin?
When we leave it.
When did we leave Egypt?
13 Nisan.
15.
15.
Excuse me, my handwriting is confusing. 15th of Nisan.
Yeah.
15th.
Yeah.
Right. When did we come to Mount Sinai and hear God speak to us in Revelation?
6 of Sivan.
Right, 50 days later, the 6th of Sivan. Did we receive anything in hand?
No.
No notes?
No.
No, maybe we had candy bars for the kids? Candies?
Maybe.
You saw an audio-visual show. It's like a rock concert. Maybe we had t-shirts. Right? I don't know what. The Talmud says, the Midrash says, that on the 6th of Sivan, every Jew got 2 crowns. Not 1 crown, 2 crowns. We had an outfit. We had a special outfit. And then, of course, when we sinned, because God calls Moshe after the great event. This was a great event. Nobody got trampled. It was a success, Baruch Hashem. Everybody heard. There was a little bit of a problem because it was too loud. The neighbors complained. No, the neighbors didn't complain. But some of the Jews complained. They said, we can't listen to the voice of God. So Moshe, you tell us the rest. So that's what happened. Moshe told us the rest. We're not quite sure how much is the rest and how much they heard from God directly. There's a tradition that the first 2 commandments they heard directly, and the later 8 from Moshe. But it's not clear in the text exactly when that happened. But it was a success. And then God says, Moshe, come on up for 40 days and 40 nights. From the 7th to the 17th of Tammuz. From the 7th of Sivan to 17th of Tammuz. 17th of Tammuz, they were supposed to get the tablets. They sinned with the golden calf. They didn't get them. So we have anything in hand?
No.
Still nothing in hand. Still nothing in hand. Nisaniyam Sivan Tammuz Av Elul. Between 17th of Tammuz and the 1st of Elul, or the 29th of Av, another 40 days where Moshe is asking for forgiveness. We get forgiven, we still don't have anything in hand. God says, come on up for another 40 days. By the way, that's another reason why there must be an oral Torah. As Shmuel said, much of what's written in the written Torah didn't even happen yet. So, what did Moshe do for 40 days? Review the book of Bereshit? Could do that in a few hours. 40 days the first time, 40 days the second time, 40 days the second time he was praying. For the first time he was learning Torah, and the third time he was learning Torah. For 40 days or 40 nights, there was tons of tradition that Moshe was being taught. Oral. At the end of the 40 days, the third time, comes down, sign, God has forgiven the Jewish people. We have the second tablets. Right? Version 2.0 of the tablets. That works out to be on Yom Kippur. That's why, what column is it in Yom Kippur?
The first days.
History.
It's not in the column of the fast days.
Or biblical.
It's in the biblical holidays because essentially it's not a day of sadness.
No, it's the happiest
It's
day.
the happiest day in the world. Hashem forgives us. It's true, we commemorate it by fasting. But it's not the same as the fast days of destruction. It's not a sad day. We're not commemorating any destruction. We're commemorating the greatest celebration of finally receiving the first physical.
So this is why Shavuot's not the Matan Torah.
Shavuot is oral. It is Matan Torah.
It's not described as Matan Torah. It's not.
But why doesn't it mention that it's the day you heard, you had the revelation in Sinai, even if it was oral? It's an oral tradition that this was the time where we heard that oral revelation in Sinai. There's another day. Is that okay? Yeah.
Why? How is 40?
That's what I was saying, that I think it tells a message. The number 40 represents transition from one state to another state. A state of sin to a state of forgiveness. A state without Torah to a state with Torah. It's different.
Like Noah's flood, it's also 40 days.
Noah's flood. The world before destruction and after the destruction. It's a new world. 40 days and 40 nights. It says the flood. Very good. Jewish people came out of Egypt.
Yep.
They all had to die. 40 years later, a new nation. 40 years. It's a symbolic number. But we use the symbolism, we put it in the calendar, and this is a tradition, tells us when the events happened. And so we are celebrating on the 6th of Sivan the oral, giving of the oral Torah. The oral 10 Commandments. Not all the oral Torah. The oral Torah was given over for generations by teachers to students, teachers to students. Moshe Rabbeinu, perhaps for 40 days and 40 nights, was learning all those oral traditions. Not everything gets written down. At first, nothing gets written down. Only 10 commandments get written down and rewritten down. But the rest of the Torah, there is a tradition that it was written by Moshe at the end of the 40 years. And we put it in a scroll. And there's another day of the year when we celebrate the scroll. When do we celebrate the scroll of the Sefer Torah?
Simchat Torah.
Yes.
When is Simchat Torah? Look on your calendar.
22 of Tishrei. Shemini Aseret.
Yes.
That's right. We should put that in, actually, right? It's also is another name. Again, this is not biblically called that. The tradition, it's a later tradition. They would read the Torah like we do now. Once a year, we go through the whole Torah. Start and finish it on Simchat Torah. 54 parshiot. Takes us a year. So for someone doubled up because it's 2 weeks a year. And so that's the day we celebrate with the scroll, right? Because we have a cycle of reading it. But nothing historically happened necessarily on Shmini Atzeret that should describe it as Simchat Torah. We don't know when the actual Torah scroll was given over to the Jewish people. Moshe died on Zayin Adar, which is totally another day, which is not, you could put it in the list of commemorations on the 7th of Adar. Actually, we should, because the 7th of Adar is the death of Moshe. And until today, we don't say Tachnon on the 7th of Adar. It's the day that Moshe was born and died.
Also,
Our tradition. After how many years? Moshe died 120. 120. 40. Right? 120 is a good number. 3 periods of 40 years.
40 years in Mitzrayim, 40 years in Midian and
That's right.
Cush.
That's right.
40 years.
Exactly.
Or maybe no, he was not 40. I heard he left Egypt when he was 28 or something like that.
Yeah, came back.
Like 8 years. So before
80 years old. Came
so
back.
28 or 80 he was shepherding and he was
Yeah.
also commander of other country. Right.
There's different traditions about that. It doesn't say explicitly in the Torah, but we have different traditions.
Okay, but they have midrash.
Fascinating. Anyways, okay, Benjamin, does that make sense
Okay.
now? Yeah.
Yeah.
How about I got a question?
So Shavuot, we celebrate the receiving of the Torah on Sinai. It doesn't mean receiving a book.
No.
There's no book yet. We received revelation. It says, Man Matan Torah Teinu, it's the time of our giving of our Torah. Revelation is the foundation of the Torah. That's what we celebrate on Shavuot. Okay? Yeah, who else?
I want to ask a question. Yeah, just now I mentioned the 6th of Sivan. Hashem Hashem brought the crown for the Jewish people.
Yes.
But I heard this, and when they sin, I mean, at first each angel they brought the crown. Then when they sin, then they need 2 angels for the crown. I don't understand why is it when they
So we're going to see.
crowning is like first
one
one angel.
Yeah. The crown, I think it's a metaphor. You know, the Jewish people, when God came to them, even before the 6th of Sivan, the beginning of the Sivan, like today, the Torah describes, they came to Sinai, and then God revealed himself to Moshe and said, I got a deal. I got a deal for you. Go to the Jewish people and tell them, I want to make you my chosen nation. We can read it in chapter 19. And the Jewish people say, we're in. There's a special phrase that they use. Actually, here it's confusing. The phrase that we speak about actually appears, we use the version which appears in chapter 24, not in chapter 19. And that's why there's a debate when exactly the Jewish people said this, chapter 24. Is it go back to chapter 19? Is it another version of that? But anyways, the phrase that they use is na'aseh v'nishma. Chapter 19 it only says na'aseh, but the full phrase that appears in chapter 24 is na'aseh v'nishma. We will do and we will hear.
And this in which chapter?
It appears in 24.
Yes. Because I remember also in chapter 19 they received the Mitzvot, the 10 Commandments, and then the chapters between 19 and 24 talk about the African.
Lots of laws.
Another mystic
Lots of
revelation. 24.
Lots of laws.
But we learn also in the Rav a lot of things are not in chronology, so we have to figure out. Also like Yitro, like when Yitro come and he say, hey, the laws and the Torah.
Yeah.
But it happened before,
Right.
what we read in 19. So.
That's right. As we were saying, the written Torah is a very difficult book without oral tradition. Oral tradition, we have to know how to read it because it goes back and forth. The timeline is not clear. Different versions of the same story. Some people say that 24 is just another version of what happened in chapter 19. It just completes the story. There was this whole bringing sacrifices that happened beforehand. In chapter 19, not in chapter 24, after the giving of the mitzvot. So it's a little confusing in the text.
But it's also like protection, right? That people not worthy, or not, I would say worthy, but cannot take the Torah and they run with it because they can run with it, but they have oral tradition. So it's like
That's right.
the gems are hidden for them.
That's right. You're fine. Separate the men from the boys.
Yeah.
Separate the Jews from them who have an oral tradition to those who just have a book or a translation of a book. That's not Judaism.
Yeah.
That's why there's on which fast day is it? I think the 17th of Tammuz. The Talmud says that there are 5 reasons to fast. One reason is the breaking of the tablets. One reason is they breached the walls of Jerusalem. That's the connection to this destruction. One of the reasons is because that's the day the Torah was translated into Greek. We love translations. What's wrong with translations? Without translations, we wouldn't be able to study Torah. But it can give you the wrong idea if you just take the book as a book without any other the oral, living tradition that went along with the book. And so that's why it was a day of sadness, because sort of taking the Torah out of its true meaning. It has to be given together as a book, together with the oral Torah. And once you have it written down and translated, then other nations can just say, "Oh, I read this book. Oh, it makes no sense." Or what's that?
That's up to abuse and here's Jesus and here's Jesus and here's Jesus.
Oh, right. You can be misinterpreted. That's right. You can give all sorts of interpretations.
It's everywhere. It's
Yeah, right. You can fool some people if you don't know Hebrew. Even if you do know Hebrew, you can fool some people, but it's hard. Anyways, so does that answer your question, Stephen? What were you asking again?
No, I was asking why is it there's two
So
angels?
the two crowns, yeah. So the
They
two
need
crowns.
two angels for the crown. Yeah.
Two crowns are for these two words that the Jewish people used when they accepted the deal. God gave the mission statement, you're going to be a special nation, and I'm going to give you special rules, and you're going to be my messenger to the entire world. You're going to be a holy nation. And the Jewish people answer, Naaseh v'nishma. Naaseh, two words. And so the Talmud says they got two crowns, one for Naaseh and one for Nishma. You have to understand what this means. What is the significance of each word, each commitment that the Jewish people said? I will do. Nishma means I will hear or understand. Doing and understanding. It's two levels of commitment. And the two crowns. These are the crowns of the Jewish people. Doing and understanding. And then the tradition says that when they sinned with the golden calf, 40 days later, the angels took away their crowns. They had to take the crowns off them, and they could no longer wear the crowns. Of course, they were very sad. That was the end of they thought this could be the end of the entire mission of the Jewish people. Baruch Hashem. Hashem forgave us. Another 40 days. Another 40 days. We did get back our special status on Yom Kippur. Yes?
you said there were 4 reasons. The Talmud says that they 5 reasons on the 17th of Tammuz.
Why we fast on the 17th of Tammuz.
This is breaking of the
Loopholes,
tablets, breach of the wall of Jerusalem,
Yeah.
translation of Torah into Greek.
What are the other 2? You're testing me here.
Another time.
You're testing me. What are the other 2 reasons?
What do we have so far?
Breaking of the tablets,
Yeah.
breaching the walls of Jerusalem, and the translation of the Torah into Greek.
Is a Ketaigal is
Ketaigal.
one of them?
Which one?
Yeah, that goes together with the breaking of the tablets because of the Chedaiga, the sin of the golden calf. Yeah, it goes together. There was a fellow with a tradition that there was some ruler, foreign king called Apustamus. Apustamus was his name, and he burnt the Torah scroll. I'm not quite sure when exactly this refers to. Second Temple period. Who was this Apustamus? It sounds like a Greek name, but there was an event which our sages say that happened. The burning of the Torah happened on the 17th of Tammuz as well. So that's number 4. What's number 5?
Defiling of the temple, right?
No.
No.
Breach of the walls was on the 17th of Tammuz. You can Google it in a second and find the 5th one.
Yeah, we study
What is that?
Zmanim.
Let's see if this works. Okay. The 5th thing is
You say here the cancellation of the Tamid offering.
there you go. Canceling of the Talmud, the Tamid offering at the end of the Second Temple. There's a great movie, it was just released last year, 2 years ago already, about, it's an animated, it's a movie which is made with art. still art, and they turned it into a very dramatized version of how the temple was destroyed, the second temple, with the fighting between different groups of Jews. It was called Agadat HaChurban, the legend of the destruction. They described there how they were using up the last animals that they had, and it's the end of the temple service, which was a very hard thing for the Jewish people who lived. This was the center of their religious life. So that's the fifth one. Okay, so we got them all.
What was the last one? Was something with
The Tamid sacrifice. There was a daily sacrifice in the temple, and that's stopped on that day. Okay. Anyways, back to our topic at hand. Shavuot. We commemorate the original giving of the Torah. What Torah did we receive?
Oral.
The oral Torah, primarily. We heard God's voice. We had a revelation at Sinai, and we're going to discuss this more in B'ezrat Hashem tomorrow. You got your charts down? You ready? You ready? Tomorrow we'll test you again. Make sure everybody's on the same page. It's good we did a review of the Melachot as well. Shavuot is coming. We have to learn the halacha, oral tradition, the written tradition. So when you study Torah this Shavuot night, what do you think you should study? Should you study Tanakh? The written Torah? The Masoretic text? $38 million? Or should you probably prefer to study the oral Torah? Gemara is one, yeah. So what we're celebrating primarily is the oral Torah. There was no books. There was no tablets even. So 120 days later, right? Oral Torah, this is the revelation. So studying the oral Torah is even better. Although there's different traditions. Some traditions study it all. Do a little bit of the written Torah, a little bit of the oral Torah. Different great books, different holy books that we have. Many ways to learn Torah all night. The main thing is, have coffee. Don't fall asleep. And then, at dawn, we once again receive the Torah. We read the passage about the revelation of Hashem at Mount Sinai. We relive the experience of having a great revelation. Make sure you're awake for that. Okay, we'll stop it for today.